I'm throwing my fairly conservative mom, 59, a bachelorette party. I need some ideas to keep it fun, but also tasteful. My mom's getting remarried after about 40 years of marriage to my dad. I'm so happy for her, and I told her I would throw her a bachelorette party. I think she's excited about the idea, but also nervous and is worried about it being too awkward. It'll just be me, my sister, and her, and we're fairly close, but we don't often talk about sex and never really have. Anyone have any ideas on how to make this both fun and tasteful? This is from Reddit user whereismystarship.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for writing that question. I am so happy for you and your mom, and it's just so sweet to hear that, you know, you're so invested in and excited about throwing her a party that she'll be able to remember, and will kind of kick off that, you know, the festivities of her getting remarried. I think the most important thing that I want to say is, since it is, especially since it's just your sister, you and your mom, you can really cater the activities and the taste level, as you said, to what you know that you guys like. I would resist any feeling of pressure to make it sexual, because especially in this family context, that's intimate, but not necessarily that open in that topic, it might just feel unnatural to do something like that. She's already had like the first marriage and maybe a bachelorette party from that. I would be shocked if she was expecting some kind of sex extravaganza.
Right.
So I would lean into thinking about, why is this so special for her? And what is kind of the send off and your well wishes that you want to offer her during this time. Consider what are the things that you know about her and love about her, and you could even come up with sort of a theme around that. So maybe one of her favorite animals or favorite things, you know, just something that's like a cute little intimate detail that you know about her that is special, but it doesn't have to be racy or anything, and just shows that you care and creates that environment of celebration.
What would that
love.
be for you if you've been married for 40 years, starting at 19, you're 59 now?
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
I know it's a lot of hypotheticals for you to process there, but favorite animal, at least you could probably...
A rabbit,
yeah. Okay, so what would be
and
a
that's
rabbity?
Like, rabbit is like, you know, has a little bit of a like sort of saucy sexual connotation. Playboy bunnies. Yeah.
Playgirl.
And fucking like rabbits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carrots or dick-like.
Carrots or dick-like. So that's kind of like a cute, campy way you could lean into coming up with like the little like little props or something if you want to do that, go that route. Having recently been to, not very recently, not like during COVID or anything, but in the semi-recent history, been to a few friends' bachelorette parties. They were all really different, and what made each of them great was really just getting to be there with the people we were celebrating with and being together and centering it around them and helping them to feel special. And so whether it was going to a strip club in Montreal or just going down south to North Carolina to hang out at a goat farm, like very different. Not that either of those were like the central theme of the bachelorette parties, but different activities, different tones. And it was really catered to the personality of the bride to be. So use your mom as the inspiration and come up with those little details, I think, that will make her feel really like seen by you.
Yes. Great advice.
Thanks.
I think the original reason for a bachelor or bachelorette party is to give a one last hurrah to whatever the person is giving up. So maybe start with, what is this new husband? She's marrying a new person, right?
I suppose.
What do they not enjoy doing? Or what is it going to be harder to do with them around? What's like the type of activity? Maybe they hate shopping and you guys love shopping. I mean, maybe stereotypical, but it's just a guess. Maybe they're a hunter and you guys want to go to the zoo. You're never too old to go to the zoo.
We learned that last week.
Maybe they can't swim and you guys like to fish. Just whatever like you cherish. Or I'd look back through your memories of what are some positive memories. Make her feel proud about, that's like really made an impact on her, that we did that thing when she was 8. Do like a grown-up version where you're no longer just along for the ride on that, but can steer the ship a little bit if you are to go fishing or something like that. Start with whatever this guy doesn't like or whatever would be harder to do with him there, I think. I
love that idea.
Right? Isn't that why there are strippers traditionally at bachelorette parties? Is like, this is the thing that once you tie that knot, they're not going to like you doing this all the time.
Well, it's, at one of the bachelorette parties I went to, they had like a sign that was basically like one penis forever now or something.
Yeah.
So I think that's the idea of like, okay, now you're like settled, you're like saddled to this genitalia for the rest of your life. Obviously.
So let's tempt you as much. Let's give you the most convincing argument.
You just get it out of your system.
Okay.
I think that's what it's more about.
Do you think that works that way though? Or
no, of course not.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of a backward. Like maybe it's a test. Maybe it's if you make it through this and you still want to get married, then go ahead and do it. Let us make the argument for you being single first.
One of the things I wanted to say, sort of tacking on to what are the things that are just going to be more difficult or maybe you won't be able to do at all once you're married. So orienting it towards that. So what does, and this may require talking to your mom about it, but like, what does singlehood represent for her? And what did this period before marrying this new guy mean for her? And maybe it is kind of saying goodbye to some of like what is painful about being single or some of what is annoying about being single. And you can kind of celebrate putting those things to bed. I mean, it's a cute idea, but like I also, as I'm saying that, I'm thinking like there is so much independence and, selfhood that remains like in partnership. And obviously the type of relationship that your mom has with her current fiance, assuming that's the structure, it probably not a whole lot is going to change with her status going from engaged to married. But yeah, finding maybe what are the things that are like those little, just like, you can even use your own experience of being single to inform this, like, and it can be more of kind of like the cliches of being single to some extent. But I think at the end of the day, your mom's going to appreciate whatever you do. And you can just also go into it as a party for you to enjoy as well.
I like this idea of reminders of why it sucks to be single. Specifically, you could take the skills of this fiance, let's call him Barry or something. If Barry's very handy, you could like manufacture look at this cabinet door won't close. Take like a jar of pickles and super glue them shut and be like, can you give me a pickle? And no one can open the pickle jar. Man, if only Barry was here. Just like a series of little planted just difficulties of life that that Barry would be able to easily solve. That could be a way to make her look forward to the marriage and anticipate that.
Yeah, and get a ladder and put it somewhere really high, unless Barry's super short.
Unless Barry's super we'd need more information about Barry to customize this, but I think we're giving you a good example of what type of thinking to use, at least. What's the methodology here?
Yeah. So the other thing is like the type of thinking too is you want it to be fun. And so having like a playful mindset, but not necessarily like a sexual mindset in thinking about how you can celebrate. And there are tons of like bachelorette party style kind of games that you can play that aren't necessarily sexual. A popular game that has been played at I think every bachelorette party I've been to, which we played at my birthday, Fishbowl.
Oh, okay.
So Fishbowl is basically everyone writes on like little pieces of paper something that like has to do with your mom. Some like it could be an inside joke, it could be a person in her life. It could be a particular place, sort of proper noun-ish, like one concept. And then you put it in the bowl. Pepsi, if you have a particularly like fond memory of your mom.
She just always drinks Pepsi.
She always drinks Pepsi. Pepsi goes in the bowl. And
not the drink, but a piece of paper with.
Yeah, you just coat the whole thing in sticky. No. And then each person, there needs to be teams. It's just going to be the three of them. They can't play. Ooh. How did we do it? There are only four of us. How did we do it?
Yeah, we had to kind of do an honor system.
Oh, we did like how many can each person guess in?
Yeah, and you don't say it if you're the one. If you think it's something that you wrote, you don't guess it.
It's too complicated.
So it's a little, honestly, guys.
Let's just cut this part.
No, this is staining because I want to speak out against Fishbowl. I'm glad that we had a good time, and any game would be fun with you, Morgan, in the group that you assembled. Thanks. But I think you can do better than Fishbowl. You can just do charades. I think having to be there for all rounds and people can't join late. It's just.
There's only three of them.
It's an overrated game, this Fishbowl game. It really is. So, yeah, if you're looking for games... Ooh.
I know, it's tough to... That's why I thought of Fishbowl, because I was like, I don't know, I can't think of any other games on top of my head. I'm getting really hot right now. Really? I feel the pressure is on. Okay. I feel the pressure that you're under of like trying to come up with something fun, tasteful on the fly.
Yeah. You just go to dinner and have, if she's got favorite games, or if you have games that you played as kids that maybe you're big Jenga family, or maybe big on Clue, or, what you know. Revisit any of those classics, or just have it as an option, I guess. But, you don't need to have a game.
Yeah. I mean, you could also write up like a little speech, or just say nice things about your mom and ask her sister to do the same, and just keep it heartfelt and keep it authentic to you guys. It doesn't have to be like some big fancy production to fulfill some idea of what a bachelorette party should be.
I like the idea of some minor novelty decoration being penis themed.
Okay.
Not something that you have to like pin the dick on the donkey or some they have
that
those
old classic.
They have a lot of like remaking a game with a penis, I think, for bachelorette parties in the novelty section of Spencer's Gifts. But like, just if they're crazy straws that have a dick shaped into them, I think it could just with a straight face, don't draw too much attention to it, just make nice drinks and have those, or like some other minor, and then if questioned about it, you can just be like, well, it's a bachelorette party. And you
just say it's a cocktail and you just slam it down in front of her.
That's funny. I've never heard that. Yeah.
Well, good luck.
Good luck. Where's my starship? I hope you find your starship and a good time with your mom.
All right, let's do it.
Here is free advice.
Free advice. Free advice. Free advice.
Free advice.
Free advice. Free advice. Free advice. Free advice. Would you like free advice? Free advice. Free advice. Free advice. Free advice. Forever.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 60 of the Free Advice podcast.
Shit.
What, are you surprised we made it?
I don't know. No, I'm not surprised we made it. It's just what a nice even number that is.
60. You remember that Saturday Night Live sketch where it could be Molly Shannon goes, I'm 50. And then she kicks. She goes, I can kick, I can strut, I can stretch. She's like a proud of her age woman.
That's cool.
Yeah. Our listeners will understand and appreciate that reference.
Sure.
How are you, Morgan? Do you need any advice?
No, I'm good. Okay. I was going to say that's Rob Zaleski.
It is. It's me.
It still is. And I'm Morgan Beard. Mm-hmm. Do I have any advice? Well, you know what? Before we get into it, I would love to hear that response that we got from one of our question askers last week.
Botanic Angel.
Yeah.
Botanic Angel. So think of like a peace lily sprouting wings above a bud. Looks like a little angel. Yeah. Well, if you remember from last week, if you weren't there, that's okay. I'll recap it for you. Botanic Angel came across one of her favorite video game characters in a compromising fan fiction art situation that was pornographic.
It was not tasteful and fun.
It was not tasteful and fun. Didn't leave much to the imagination. A little further research, I found out this was a character from Silent Hill 3, which is a horror video game. So character's already in danger, has to use a lot of bravery, but there's no graphic sexuality in that game, just violence and gore. We got a response from Botanic Angel. She said, it actually wasn't a drawing, it was an animation where they literally took the character model from the game and, So you can see why that scarred me, lol. I know this whole thing sounds silly, but the character means a lot to me because I kind of adopted a piece of her personality to get through a really rough time in my life. So seeing that stupid graphic animation was just like, what the fuck? Like walking in on a family member.
Oof.
Not that that's happened to me, but you get it. I do appreciate the free advice. Morgan perfectly summed up what I was feeling. I loved the advice you both gave. Thank you for covering this. Much love to you both. Heart.
Thank you so much, Botanic Angel. We really appreciate your response and glad that we could give you advice on something where it just felt sort of shocking and disorienting and
Icky even.
Yeah. And thanks for writing us back. We really appreciate hearing your feedback. It's
Yeah,
awesome
we
to hear
do.
from our listeners. We love it.
It is. All right. I have a request for advice.
Shoot.
What do I do at the end of a piece of art that I've formed a relationship with? Say you're ending a book. In this case, it's a TV show for me. This German television show, Dark, which I've just been obsessed with this last week. Mm-hmm. It's coming to an end. I've got 3 episodes left. I've watched like 25 of them or something. What do I do at the end of it when there's that hole? I miss my show. Do I just try and find the closest possible thing and then continue binging? What do you do?
That's such a good question. And
Thank
I feel like, it's
never watch the last episode so I can always hold on to what might be.
That's one option.
Have you ever done that?
No.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't make it all the way through a lot of shows. So I don't
What about
encounter
books?
this that
Do you
often.
do you ever just miss a world, miss characters, miss...
I think with books, it's kind of superseded by that sense of accomplishment that comes from just having actually finished the
I
book.
read a book, everybody.
I did it, and you slap the cover closed. It's like, I did this.
You get to
That's
hit it on
right.
the table. Bam.
Yeah, and maybe with TV shows because it's something you engage with more passively. And then the
Passively.
screen just...
You don't engage passively with Dark.
Well, excuse me then.
Maybe The Bachelor or Love Island, you engage passively, but not with Dark.
Okay, so anyway, what I was going to say was it's something like TV, you're watching it, and then it's like, boom, it's over. It just goes black. Like, it feels like it left you versus like when you finish a book, you
I get what
close
you're
it
saying.
and put it down. And so I feel like maybe it's almost like triggering of an abandonment thing of like, oh, now this thing that I was so invested in is just like gone. And then you're just kind of like sitting there on the couch with popcorn in your lap, like, what do I do now? I don't know. I don't know if the right answer is to try to just dive into something similar and be chasing that dark high, or to maybe pursue something that's radically different. It's kind of similar to the question of like, what do you do like after a breakup? Do you get right back out there and try to like rebound and like you try to fuck someone hot? Do you try to have a relationship that's like very similar to the last one and just be like, well, it'll basically just be Henry, but I'll have corrected this and this mistakes and I'll just close my eyes and nothing will have changed and it'll be like I'm still watching Dark.
Yeah.
I don't know. It kind of depends on how you feel. Like how did you feel? You have 3 episodes left, right?
3 episodes left.
Okay.
Very
how are you feeling
spooked.
now?
Very, very tense and on edge, and just gotta know. I gotta know what happens.
Yeah.
Intrigued.
Okay. You said it's horror? What's the genre?
It's definitely spooky. I don't know if it's directly. It's more thriller than horror.
Yeah, so you could look up like other types of like thrillers, a thriller series on Netflix. Have you ever watched American Horror Story?
No.
That could be something to try. I mean, it's not going to be the same thing. I think that's the best advice that I can give now that I've spit out a bunch of crap. I can really get down to like what I actually want to say, which like sometimes happens.
Waiting for the nugget. I knew it was
coming. I think savor the last 3 episodes.
Yeah.
Know how much you're going to.
No way. I'm making it to tomorrow not having seen them.
I didn't say don't watch them. I said savor them.
Yeah.
Because you know how much, like the part of the excitement of it is just the anticipation you're even in now thinking about them, right? So savor this experience. Yeah. Savor when you actually do watch them. Savor the like roller coaster ride of like the plot points unfolding. And then let yourself be in the space after that unfolds. And know that you enjoyed it to the best extent that you possibly could. And I don't know, I lost the track of the last little, like the tail end of the thing I was going to say, but I don't know. It's hard. It sucks when something you were like really engrossed in ends and then you have to decide, okay, what's the next thing I'm going to put my time into? And if it's starting a new show, you're not going to immediately be as engrossed as you were.
Yeah.
That's another problem of like when a relationship ends. Like
I think I'll take a break from show. I won't try and immediately slot something into that schedule. I'd like to break the pattern of obsessing over this thing and make something feel something different, and then have I can always rewatch it. A lot of people rewatch this show because it's so deep and complex.
Oh shit! You recommended it to me. I thought about starting it the other night, and then I just didn't.
It's tough. I don't know if you'd understand it. I don't know if I do. So if I can understand it, imagine what you'd be like coming from The Bachelor. No subtitles necessary on The Bachelor.
Yeah, I feel like you don't even have to speak English to watch that show. Yeah, so well, you could live vicariously through me as I watch it, but no, don't hold your breath on that.
Okay, yeah,
but I will let you know if I start.
Don't need to appease me on that.
Yeah.
Okay, this has been good advice. I think I know what to do. Is just prep myself to be attentive and take breaks between the episodes and let things sink in. And not rush. I don't need to rush through it.
Yeah.
I get caught up in the hype of a release. Of a cultural phenomena, even though I don't know anybody else is watching it. I like to read the excitement of people on Reddit who are doing it. It's almost as fun as watching the show as after the episode, reading the discussions to me.
So that's going to be great.
That'll be
great. You can dive right into that.
Yeah, I can start reading the stuff that's interpreting the series as a whole instead of just episode by episode. Yeah, I definitely will be reading that stuff.
Yeah.
Right when I'm done with it. Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. That good advice. Let's. What do you say? Go back to our questioners.
Let's do it.
Our non-host advisees. All right, I got one here from stripyKiwi. How to start enjoying and listening to music. I rarely listen to music on my own. It's not something too special for me. Everyone seems to love music, though. How to start enjoying it and listening to it regularly.
I love this question because I think that it's like you said, everyone loves music and like talks about it all the time. And anytime you ask someone like, oh, what do you enjoy doing? And often the answer is like, oh, I love music. I love like listening to music. And I mean, I'm one of those people, of course. Like it's not a snooty thing. It's a pretty universal thing.
It's pretty basic sensory pleasure.
Yeah. And so I think that one avenue into it, which is a lens that I try on sometimes if I'm in a situation like at a party where maybe I don't feel like I fit in with the people or whatever. Sometimes I just approach something like I'm an anthropologist and I'm just trying to understand, okay, what is the appeal of this cultural phenomenon to other people that aren't me? And you can kind of try on that identity and as you're listening to whatever music, start wherever. There's no right or wrong answer. There's so much music out there.
Answer. I've got a right answer.
Oh.
Whatever you're already familiar with.
Okay.
Whatever you have associations with, like if you have a favorite movie, the soundtrack to that movie, maybe you already link it to the moments of.
Oh, brilliant.
Right.
I love that. So listen to that starter point. I love the idea of familiarity too is so great because especially like with music, our brains love familiarity and repetition. And so, there's kind of that curve that we go through when we listen to music where it's like when something's kind of new, we might be like, oh, maybe I like this. But then you listen to it again and you're kind of like, oh, now I'm a little bit familiar with it, but it's still kind of new. And you reach that curve of enjoyment where it's like that maximum point where it's like the right balance of, I know this, I like know all the words, but it's still kind of like exciting and new. And then it kind of falls off. And then maybe you rediscover it years later or whatever. But listen to it and just see if you can make a list even of like what's enjoyable about it for you. What could you theoretically be enjoying about it? What is the aural like experience of it? How many different sounds can you hear? All these different questions and avenues through which to explore like what is the sensory experience I'm having right now, versus just kind of like pushing play on a song, doing something else, thinking about whatever. Really like take that 3 minutes or whatever the length of the song is and just practice immersing yourself 100% in the world that the artist created. I'd recommend closing your eyes. You could sit, you could stand, you could like see how it makes your body move.
Yeah, moving your body to it, I think, is a great way to enjoy it. Even if it's just tapping your toe or bobbing your head, could be moving your hips. It could be the whole body or just a piece of it. But letting it move you, letting it kind of like surrendering to it, letting it be your guide and following its rhythm is a pleasurable thing that many people enjoy about music.
Yeah.
I think prediction is the big gratifying thing most people get out of music is when it's just predictable enough. There's still new things to discover, but mostly you get that satisfying feeling of expecting something and then it happening how you expect it. And that's why like people like a certain genre of music is because they've heard it enough to understand the conventions and to know like, all right, if that chord was played, it's probably going to go back to that original, like the one chord or rhythms. Like, okay, it's about time for the chorus. Here we're going to hear the part that repeats. I'm going to play a little game with Morgan right now to see if this is satisfying. I'm going to do something musically, and then you just fill in what you think comes next based on our shared knowledge of music that we've both heard. Okay.
Okay, I'm ready. I can feel it.
Oh, so gratifying. I got chills. I got little
tonight.
you see those? And my hair is slightly on end.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a lot, but
what a big reveal. Wow. Wow, can you see that?
Yeah, because there was a little bit of mystery. Is she going to know? Am I going to do it the right way? Is she going to? But you did. And
I know, I got a little nervous myself.
It's familiar. I knew you had it, though. I knew you had it, didn't you? It's that familiarity. And so.
Released.
Yeah. Listen to something over and over again while you're doing household chores or driving or whatever it is, and you'll start to like it more. They have to pay DJs to play hits initially often because people need to hear it a couple times before they start to want to hear it again. Yeah.
I have an unrelated game.
What?
You could ask a handful of people what is their favorite song. And then as you're listening to it, do all the things that we talked about of like really trying to immerse yourself in it, listen to the different sounds, move your body. But then you can also kind of play the psychological game of like, why do I think that this person is particularly drawn to this type of music or this song or this, is it the lyrics? Is it the rhythm?
Oh, yeah.
I guess it's just another kind of angle through which you can try to appreciate the art form. Because if you're someone who kind of doesn't feel like listening to music is inherently that special of an activity, then, you know, maybe you're kind of like listening to music that everyone else is hearing and they're like, wow, I'm so into this, holy shit. And you're kind of like, eh. Having those added little facets to like give you a way that's more interesting to maybe go deeper into it. I'm trying to think what else would I say. I mean, all those things, but then like part of me wants to say, don't do any of those things and just be like, just
some
let
people
yourself
don't really like
listen.
music. This is something I learned in a psychology class, that most of the time people hide this, but something like 5 to 10% of people just don't really enjoy it. I don't know what that has to do with exactly. I've heard that music is the joy of counting. Could be a very small number of people have no sense of pitch and like don't really distinguish between different pitches. But that's a super small number. I don't think that's you. But there's a decent number. We both know people who just don't enjoy music very much.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if it's a disconnection from the body, if it's people who are living very much in their heads and not paying attention to the signals of their bodies, don't feel that connection between what goes in their ears and then like their feet tapping. But if you can tap your foot along to a song or clap along, snap along, then you probably have the right equipment to enjoy music. It just maybe isn't something that you've gotten into yet.
Yeah, or maybe you haven't spent enough time figuring out what kind of music do I actually like? Like what actually resonates with me. I think you can like
any kind of music though.
Totally. You know what would be a great genre to start with?
What?
World music. I feel like I love I love world music because I feel like it's kind of like human music. Like it's very like primal. It's got this like sort of natural elements to it, and it almost is like listening to nature. If nature really had like voices, I mean it does like birds, that's music. Wind through the trees, that's music. So maybe it's even broadening your definition of what is music, like what is musical, and also trying to get comfortable with or just playing with the idea of like what kind of music can I make. Like if I'm sitting at a table, can I like create a drum beat? Dun, 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 dun. You know, you might not fall into it that easily because this is something that, you know, it comes more. I've practiced that.
She's rehearsed that a lot.
Yeah. Before we started recording, I was like, all right, what am I going to do?
60 episodes in, it's time. My debut.
But that's the thing. It's like you don't get to a point where you can like make rhythm unless you let yourself play and let yourself fail and let it not sound good. Make shitty music to start. But maybe another avenue in for you is taking on the creator role. Maybe that would make it more interesting than just being a passive listener.
Singing along to songs is a big, like, find a song you like, play it twice, second time, try and sing along to the parts that you can remember. You don't need to get the words right, just like trying to sing the melody or getting the general energy at that point in the song right.
I mean, this is my favorite activity of all time. That'll
help you enjoy it more. It's like more of those mirror neurons firing. It'd be like watching a basketball game and you doing the jump shot maneuver as you watch the player doing it. Like it'll make it more enjoyable to appreciate somebody else doing it.
It's like virtual reality.
I think going off of what you said about world music, a good starting point is just pick any kind of culture that you think is cool that you'd like to, maybe it's biker culture. Maybe it's fishermen. I don't know why I'm not fishing today. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like maybe it's a time period. Maybe there's food associated with it or a certain art and an aesthetic that you like, and play that music as part of a night that's themed around that or an event with friends. And I think you'll like that. Like I like piano solo jazz with tea late at night. There's just something like dim lights and tea, and then quietly in the background, maybe like with the window open so I can hear what's happening outside too. Something about that is very calming to me. I don't want to listen to that all the time, but it's like it's helping create that moment that makes me feel just a little bit like sophisticated and reflective.
When you said that, it reminded me of time that I played Settlers of Catan with
Yes.
someone, and we were like, wouldn't it be like such a fun little immersive added element
no. What'd you
to
do?
find music
Like
that's like instrumental
Gregorian
music
chants?
from the Middle Ages, just like playing in the
Yeah, you
background.
did.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was cute. It wasn't
like
like my jam all of a sudden. I wasn't like dee 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 like playing like lute music. But it added a fun element. It really did like create an environment. And that's like what music
Yes.
has a lot of power to do.
Yeah, it can transport you to a world that has other associations with it.
Yeah.
Done that with scary music with Werewolf, playing like Halloween style soundtracks, horror soundtracks.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
pretty good. It's tense.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
okay, that's
Yeah.
good enough on that question.
Yeah, I love it. I think we gave great suggestions, and I think people who already love music will also
They'll love
maybe
that.
try some of those things out to
Yeah, for
change,
sure.
deepen their relationship with music. Thank you so much for asking that question.
Yes. Okay. Now we got one from Ross Howie's on one.
Ross Howie's on one. Here we
Ross
go.
Howie's on one.
I love the names. It's like trying to like put a puzzle together. Like I got one last week wrong. The small L, uppercase I.
Ross
conundrum.
Howieson one. I think Howieson is the last name, and first
Okay.
name is Ross. So we have this person's real name here.
Wow.
I work in Subway, and I nearly called a customer darling today. It felt like a darling moment. Is this okay or totally off the table? I'm an 18-year-old male, by the way, and if this is the wrong sub, can someone direct me to the right one?
Okay. I don't really love being called like terms of endearment like that by someone I don't know, but also potentially by someone I do know.
What if it's a child? Have we considered that this could be an adorable little girl that he was going to say, "Here you go, darling"?
I don't know. I think best practice, or you know what? I'm glad that you paused and thought about, okay, what would this be like before you just like blurted it out. It would not be the worst mistake in the world. Like it's been made. This mistake has been made.
Yes.
It's not a blanket thing of like this would always be a mistake. But I do think that given the climate right now in terms of gender,
The gender climate.
the gender climate, yeah. As a
Gender
male,
climate change is real.
it's just I hope so. I hope some tides are
is, it
turning.
is.
But yeah, I do think like as a male, potentially to a female customer, it really might not be appropriate, but because it's gonna depend entirely on how that person receives it. It's a gamble, I think, is really all I can say. And like, I do think a lot of people have what the association I have with it. That's kind of like, ugh, like just a little bit like, I don't want to be called honey, darling, sweetie, whatever,
Sugar.
by an old woman, by a young man. I think it's best practice is refrain, but it's sweet that you saw a moment that you felt like was darling and wanted to like reflect that in some way, but it might not be the most appropriate setting for it. I wish that wasn't my answer. I don't want that to be my answer, but
It's okay.
what do you think?
It might be okay. I could imagine scenarios where it's okay. I think the risk reward here just says never do it. Because
Right.
you have a chance of being wrong.
And the consequences of being wrong could be high.
Yeah.
You could lose your job potentially. At the
The
worst.
threat of what happens if you're wrong. I guess if you're right, maybe you fall in love with this person and the rest of your life is.
I feel like best case
infinitely
scenario,
better.
realistically, they smile at you. Worst
Yeah.
case scenario, you get fired.
Yeah. I think you want to look at the interaction up until this point. If you're using it to try to win somebody over who's already against you, that's not going to be good. If things are really good and sweet in between the two of you and this person just has gumdrop dimples, and I think it might be just the cherry on top to say, darling, here's your receipt, darling, and smile and go about. If you're trying to be sexy with it, probably shouldn't do that. Rely on nonverbals. If you're trying to hint flirtatiously, you could, wink. What do you think about? Is a wink ever okay?
I don't love being winked at. I mean, I think, again,
I love it. It's my favorite thing.
I think there is an okay way to do anything.
Yeah.
Really. There's a way to do anything. But as Rob said, the risk reward of this picture is just, the economics, it just doesn't work. It doesn't add up. It doesn't work. And it's hard because if I walked into a Subway and the Subway worker was cute, maybe I would want them to flirt with me or call me darling or something. But my reaction depends on if I'm attracted to them, to some kind of flirtatious advance. Mm-hmm. And you can't predict that, even if you think you're reading the signals correct. And that's why the gender climate thing's important.
Felt like a darling moment. It makes me think this person says darling regularly without thinking about it, that it's a habitual turn of phrase where they are.
Maybe.
And
maybe this is the first darling moment they've ever experienced.
I don't think you'd know with such certainty unless you tested the waters for a while.
Doesn't sound like they knew because they didn't end up using it. They kind of hesitated.
They nearly did it. I figured it almost slipped out. I think if it had slipped out and you'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, I just came from home and always call my siblings darling or something like that would kind of like be endearing.
Yeah. So maybe what's another way that you could be endearing without any like expectation of anything being reciprocated? Like, I like what you said about handing the...
What does darling mean?
I don't know. Like the origin of the word?
Yeah.
One who darls.
I know Darl from As I Lay Dying, that Faulkner book. It's like the main character's name, Darl.
It's a weird name.
Darling. A little Darl. A little Dar.
I think this conversation is proving that one of the reasons that you shouldn't probably do it is because there's sort of a diminutive...
Ling means like it's...
a little thing.
It's like et or ito in Spanish. It's like tiny.
Yeah. So like
tiny dar.
You have the potential to make this person feel kind of small or, feminized, or just you're putting them in a box they may not want to be put in. I think that's the danger in a situation where you're the employee serving a client. So I think it's just best to avoid. But that all being said, if you feel like using the word darling more often to spice up your linguistic, repertoire, try planning it on friends first. Just see how people you're familiar with.
They use darling a lot in non-professional
settings. That's our big contention point, because I think this is like I'm feeling into this world, and you think that they are an expert.
Okay, so we want to know.
We want to know. Do you use the word darling like frequently to describe things, or is this kind of like new territory? But yeah, I would say try it out.
And what does it mean to you?
And what does it mean to you? How would it feel? How would it feel for someone to call you darling? That's another thing to try on any of these.
What's the class of people that you're willing to call darling, and how does someone get out of that class in your book? Yeah, does darling apply to you? Is it only cute women that you would date? Is it children? Is it older ladies?
Old people?
Older ladies might be more open to being called darling.
That is true. So there are just so many variables to consider, and not knowing what that person's personal preferences are or how they're going to react, it just makes it too risky.
Yeah.
I hate saying a no. I hate to deliver a no.
Can we give an alternative?
Please.
Of something? Yes. Say that it's one of those Subways with the Hershey's ice cream add-on to it. You get one side is sandwiches, the other side is ice cream.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought they just had cookies.
Cups of... They do have cookies at Subway.
Your cookies are delicious.
A lot of Subways also have this ice cream portion.
Didn't know that.
Just gave them 2 scoops of ice cream. They want to do something a little extra special to make that customer just feel noticed and appreciated. Are there any nicknames that are okay to give people? Champ? Bucko?
Fucko, as Rob calls me sometimes.
I do sometimes.
Yeah, I would stay out of nickname territory, because it just, again, it like puts someone in a box.
Man, we can't box each other. What if you ask the person what kind of nickname they like? Say, I'm willing to call you a nickname.
You slide them a piece of
free.
paper. How's pal?
Write down your preferred nickname and I will remember it.
Yeah, I don't know if the interaction is that much, that many legs.
Mustang. Okay, Mustang.
You could do a little on their way out.
She just winked and shot a finger gun.
Yeah.
I think that's much more threatening because you're showing that person
That's
a
true.
firearm. Like, I'm going to shoot you afterwards.
Yeah. I love
Don't
finger
load
guns,
the finger
though.
guns and cock it.
Keep your finger guns on safety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to encourage the attempt to humanize the very sterile
Yeah.
interactions that come with a lot of transactions. If you want to do that, if you want to make your Subway a place where it feels a little bit more like you know the customer, they can be friendly with you, talk to you about something unrelated to the sandwich. That's a good impulse, I think, and the world could do with more of that.
Yeah.
And I think that you can be creative and find a way to do it in a way that doesn't step on the toes of women who are used to being infantilized.
Yeah, I think that like a good general rule is just if you're trying to communicate that level of sort of like special attention in a friendly way, just be present during that customer interaction, smile, make eye contact, and be yourself, and be attuned to like how are they responding to you, and just be attentive to their need, because you know that's when you show up at like a restaurant, you know, and you're getting served food, that's the experience you want. You want to have the experience of kind of being taken care of. So maybe there is a more creative way to do it, but my instinct is just be sweet, be warm, be attentive to their needs, and
Notice
be polite.
whatever kind of energy they're coming in with. Like maybe you look excited to eat this. Are you stoked for this meal?
I don't love that. I liked where you're going in terms of like noticing their energy, but then maybe you just kind of
So you can
mirror
handle
it
this
in
whole
your
6
body. What are you gonna do with this foot long, darling?
What are you gonna do? You put it in your mouth. You're gonna chew on it, swallow too, probably. Huh?
Did I stuff it too full of meat?
Okay, if the person comes in sweaty, you might
Start
say,
sweating.
"Is it hot out there?"
Is it hot out there? Is it hot out there or what? Or is it just you?
Noticing the mood that they're coming in with.
Or ask them, how are you?
Yeah, asking how
Let
are you?
them, I think like the theme that I'm trying to communicate is like, let them direct how deeply they feel like interacting with you. Let them set the tone. Let them show you what kind of interactions they're comfortable with and open having.
If they've made some kind of choice about their appearance today, you could compliment them on that choice. Say that there's a ruby brooch on their blazer lapel. You could say, "Nice brooch."
Nice brooch, bitch. No,
Well, could be bro.
Yeah, brooch bro. He's a brooch bro. I'm a brooch bro. Got to keep my uniform strict while I work at Subway, but normally I'm a brooch bro.
Covered in brooches. I've got a brooch infestation.
It would
What?
it would take nuclear holocaust to kill all these brooches. Okay.
That's bad small talk.
Yeah. All right. I once again we nailed it.
Nailed it. You're welcome. I want to slip in one more question.
Yeah, let's do it. Slip it right in.
Dangerous Cloud 80
Ooh.
says, "How can I become more empathetic? I've always been rather unempathetic, and I'm not quite sure why. It's not like I'm super rich or spoiled or privileged or any of that. I just find it hard to feel for people, be it the poor, the weak, those with disabilities, those who had traumatic incidents happen to them. I've always lacked the ability to feel for people, even if I try to. I'm so much more a suck it up and get your shit together person. And many a time I have to pretend to be concerned and listen to people talk about their problems. And while others seem to genuinely empathize, I'm just really indifferent. Friends, family, everyone seems to have more empathy than me, and I don't understand why. Is anyone else here in such a situation? How do I fix this?
Okay. I like this question too. I love that it's just like, it's vulnerable in a way, even though maybe this person doesn't have that much access to their vulnerability potentially.
I can empathize with this.
Yeah.
There are some times where I'm just like, why do other people care about this? I'm not going to look like an asshole right now and just seem really cold, but there are times when I just don't care. And
you're just aware that you're pretending. Yeah.
Yeah. Or I'm just being silent and just sitting there.
Yeah. So I would want to invite you to explore, was there ever a time where you were going through something and someone empathized with you in a really profound way, in a way that impacted you, in a way that made you feel really felt or seen or heard? And feeling into, can you see the value in providing that experience for someone else? Maybe you don't have this, but I think that there is, I would argue that it's fairly universal to, at different points in our life, at least in some moments, to at least want to be understood, or at least want to feel like the other person that we're talking to is even like listening to the words we're saying. It's a very basic experience. Like, for the way that we handle this question, I think that, you're not posting this question because you want people to respond with like, well, fuck you, who cares? Like, feel into your desires when you're sharing information and maybe sharing a challenge that you're having, like this one. And what kind of advice or what kind of presence would you want your listener to have? And then that can kind of clue you into what can I try to offer in a way that feels authentic? Because I think that's what's hard about this is like, yeah, you can, as you stated, like you can kind of fake it or be half there, but in your head be like thinking like, well, I don't really care about this. But I think that for you to find a way to empathize with people that maybe is more authentic to you, that'll feel a little bit better, and it'll probably feel better to them too, because my sense is that on some level, when someone's not really listening to you and isn't really like present and tuned into what you're saying, we can feel it on some energetic level. And some people are more and less sensitive.
Maybe we should start by defining empathy, because based on the art of empathy, there's not really one accepted definition that everybody agrees on in psychology.
Yeah. What's your definition?
I think people tend to use it to mean to catch the feeling that the other person is having, to like share that the internal experience of someone's sad. You may not cry with them, but you like start talking softer and slow down and like behave in a way that is sadder. I think is generally probably what this person is talking about for empathizing is like somebody's sad, other people are saying, oh, and like petting them or saying, I know, I understand, that's really hard. And this person doesn't feel that way. It's also empathizing, though, when somebody's excited and goes for a high five and you high five them and you smile because they're smiling and they start laughing and dancing and you do that too. Maybe that's something that you've experienced in a sports situation. It doesn't have to be the what people will call negative emotions or painful emotions to empathize. I think if you watch movies and you see a main character who's scared and you get scared because of the look on their face, that's empathizing. Actors are trained to make people empathize with them. So you probably do empathize some. My guess is that there are certain emotions that the less you feel yourself and express openly, admit to yourself and express to other people, that those are going to be the ones that are tough for you to empathize with on other people. You may not recognize them or just have recent experience of that where you maybe you don't allow yourself much self-pity. And so when other people are doing that, you perhaps respond more with anger in those situations or numbness. And it might just seem like a flaw in them to you. So I think identifying your own emotions more, seeing what they feel like, challenging yourself to feel them, is going to help you to empathize with other people.
Yeah. Yeah. You covered so many great things. I'm trying to think like where should I even start? But yeah, I think deciding for you what is your definition of empathy and fulfilling that, and not feeling maybe a pressure to go so above and beyond because someone else's emotions are just kind of, they feel them more deeply and they express them outwardly more vibrantly. That doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. I think empathy can just be you communicating that you're trying to understand, or kind of being maybe in less of a physical way than I'm doing right now, but being the container for that conversation or that sharing to happen. And some of it can be too being willing to course correct along the way. Like, let's say that, you do something that you think is empathetic when someone's sharing like a sad story, and you try to be sad with them, or listen or make a suggestion. And then if you kind of notice how they respond, and if you get the sense that they've kind of pulled away, or their facial expression seems confused, or there's just something that's a slight disconnection, you could use that opportunity to go, I'm sorry, what do you really need right now? How would you like me to respond? And you can actually mine for that data with people, as long as the energy is coming from a place of, I'm really genuinely trying to understand the feeling that you're having. Like, so I volunteer on the suicide crisis lines, and so often I can't hear someone, or sometimes someone tells me this thing happened to me, and, we're trained to basically craft an empathy statement. And sometimes I get it wrong. Like, sometimes you go, oh, wow, like that must have been really painful. And they're like, actually, it was frustrating. And there's that moment where you're kind of like, oh, shit, I like fucked up. And like, oh, no, this is going to be bad. I'm so sorry. Like, tell me more about why it was frustrating to you. And like, just sometimes that earnest effort to correct a misresponse, or what their perception of a misresponse is, can come off as like, oh, okay, this person really is just attempting to maintain a connection with me, or attempting to understand me and listen to me better. And, if I can't hear something that someone says, for example, I say, hey, I'm really sorry, but could you repeat that? I really want to make sure I understand every word that you're saying. It's always about the way that you're saying it.
Right.
Yeah.
So the way, if you want to break that down, is often like the pace of speech, mirroring somebody's body language. If their shoulders are back and open, you do that too. If they're like hunched, get down low to their level. Just being at the right eye level of somebody. If they're sitting down and you're standing above them, they're not going to feel connected to you. So like being at the same general position as them, all of those things will help you like form a connection. You're trying to feel some approximation, something like that resembles what they feel. You haven't just gone through exactly what they went through, but you can match their body, their volume, their pace to help you get as close to their headspace, their body feeling as possible.
One other thing that I want to say that is, I'm realizing now, like, wow, this is so important. It's something I used to think about and talk about all the time.
Oh, good.
Is the difference between sympathy and empathy. And so sympathy is a bit of sort of a like no, because sympathy is really like, oh, poor you, you're in this situation. That's like, oh, what a shame. It's kind of you coming down from where you are. Oh, I'm not in this situation, and I just feel so sad for you. And it's creating this like sort of distance between the two of you, like, oh, I would hate to be in your position kind of thing. It creates that separation and draws attention to the fact that you're over here having this experience and I'm over here having a different experience. And it's kind of also like synonymous with like pitying and that sort of thing. But empathy is an attempt to really like level that and be there with them. You don't, like Rob was saying, you don't have to feel exactly the feeling that they're having, but just making that attempt to be with them. And whether it's through trying to understand it, asking questions, listening, or, you know, it could be something as simple as just reaching out and touching them. If that's the kind of relationship that you have with them, it totally
She just
context
did like
dependent.
3 fingers on my forearm.
Yeah, and you can approach with caution too, and just see how they respond. But yeah, it's that attempt to show them that you're, just showing them that you care and showing them that you are trying, even if you're not feeling it. Even if, honestly, even if you don't care, you can still make a display to some extent of trying to care. That can be appreciated.
It's possible that you're in a situation where more empathic engagement is being asked of you than you have the energy for, or you have too many stressors, and this is just something that, like, you have a high stress job, or you're in some situation where there's other things that seem more important. And then I think it's also important to be able to tell people, to communicate to them that I can't be your support right now. You don't always have to be empathic with people, and maybe you're in some social environment that people are demanding more of you than you have the energy for. Nobody is a limitless, just however many people have as many feelings and come along. It's also important to take care of yourself and be able to remain grounded and energized, and you do have a limit. So I want to point that out, that don't expect that like a functioning empathic person can just do this forever without breaks and without taking time to recharge themselves and ask, okay, how am I feeling? Not as a reaction to anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. It's limited, and it's also a skill that you can learn. I mean, it's definitely something that some people come by more naturally to some extent, or their upbringing draws it out of them or helps them to develop it more. And then you find yourself as an adult more naturally gravitating towards roles where you play, you know, an empath to someone, or you a sounding board to someone, or just, you know, maybe you have you find yourself in a situation or job, an environment, a friend group where that's just not the norm. And so I think just being aware too of like, there's such a spectrum of how you can be appropriately empathetic, what types of interactions are the norm to engage in. One last thing that I want to say, because you mentioned this specifically in the post about the attitude that you often have is, you know, kind of suck it up and move on when someone is expressing a problem to you. And along the lines of what Rob said way earlier, like so long ago, is that perhaps your connection to your own emotions is somewhat uninvestigated. And maybe if this type of messaging of like, suck it up, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, all that stuff, if that's the kind of messaging that you got in all likelihood when you attempted to express a problem early on, that's going to be your go-to strategy. And that's going to be your go-to attitude. And anything that is a departure from that might feel really uncomfortable or unnatural, or like, why would I even bother giving my attention to this? And so when you notice yourself falling into that script, say, just observe it and observe your resistance to really being in the problem or being in the emotion. And my guess is that there's going to be a lot of layers to it. It could be like, why would I even do that? Like, that's stupid. And then you might get mad, and then you might feel nothing, and then you might feel sad. And it's almost like you can watch yourself when you get good at this, like burrow deeply through kind of all these different layers on top of just being with the feeling at its core. I mean, and that's a lifelong practice and discipline to like be with your own emotions long enough to get to like, here's the meat of this. But and speaking personally in my own life, I mean, it's saved me. It's been an incredibly valuable and profound way to just be with myself, is to just try to meet every layer of that emotional reaction all the way down with a kind of kindness and curiosity. So even if you can't muster empathy, see if you can muster curiosity. See if you can muster, okay, just how can I be kind? Given that maybe I don't care that much, or given that, I can't get on the same page with this person, how can I cultivate kindness? How can I cultivate just curiosity?
Do you remember the sixth step of something engagement, like empathic engagement, attuned engagement that Carla McLaren had?
No, absolutely not.
It was some type of engagement that is the goal of her empathic process. I'm forgetting now, so maybe I'll.
Was there something like general about it that you feel like is worth saying?
Yeah, just that it's not always saying anything. It's that there's not a single response. It's not like the platinum rule is treating the person the way that they would want to be treated, rather than just how you'd like to be treated or how you're used to being treated in that situation, which can be tough to figure out, and it requires these sub skills of like identifying emotions in yourself, in others, expressing them, knowing the words for them,
or being willing to ask.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't remember the exact term, but
don't be sorry.
Well, I am sorry, so just let me be sorry.
Oh, okay, so be sorry.
Thank you. You're also definitely not alone in this difficulty. Most cultures, most families have certain emotions that are shamed or are unallowable, acceptable and unacceptable emotions. And sounds like sadness is one that is not that tolerated for you. When other people are doing it, it doesn't make sense sometimes, or you just want to tell them to suck it up. That's common, and it can be overcome.
Yeah. A lot of times it's the ones that are just uncomfortable to feel. Yeah. And you can't like rush yourself past that. Life is full of pain and discomfort and a whole rainbow of other things. But I tend to think, probably out of necessity of just, I've dealt with a lot of like sadness in my life. The joy can be sweeter when you let yourself experience the darker, bluer, grayer moments. The yellow looks brighter in contrast.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of episode 60 of the Free Advice Podcast.
Wow. 60's out.
Yep. We're now in the 60s.
Slid right in.
And what do you think we should call this one, Morgan?
I have no fucking clue.
Okay. Well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Later.
I rarely do.
We'll listen back and we'll figure it out.
We've got some good themes to toy with. We've got some good motifs.
We do. Darling. That's a word that stands out. How can people get in touch with us if they want to ask us questions?
If you want to ask us questions or respond to any of the things that we said on the podcast, or if you're a advisee and we've given you advice, we would love to know Did you try any of our advice? How did it go? Was there a facet of the problem that we didn't talk about that you want to share with us? Any of the above, you can write to us at freeadvicepodcast@gmail.com and we will get back to you.
Yep. All right, guys. Thank you for listening. And sleep tight in there.
So tight.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.